What is going on? In this video, we're going to speak about the rules of hip-hop music, and we're going to focus on one aspect in particular, which is the topic of biting from other producers, other rappers, anything to do with the art of hip-hop in general. Biting is something that is a rule in hip-hop that was intended not to be broken, and we're going to discuss why it wasn't meant to be broken. But first, I'd like to let you know that the third episode of the Samplers podcast is live at the Daydream Sound website, covering the topic of the things you need to know before buying a used sampler online. This podcast will help you save yourself a lot of money and a lot of heartache. And you could always support our work here by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our sampler channel. And with that, let's get to it. Okay, this entire topic has caused a complete divide between what we know as the younger generation and the older generation of artists that make hip-hop music in present times. I'm sure you've witnessed a situation online in the comment section or whatever where someone will ask someone, "Where did you get that sample from?" And then the person replying gets really irate, either doesn't respond or responds in a way that expresses their disdain for the person who asked for the sample. Well, why is that? Someone from the older school of hip-hop culture finds a question like that offensive because they know that if you're asking for a sample, the intent is questionable, and this is strictly cultural. And following through with that, if you're willing to ask for a sample, which means you're probably not doing the work on your own, which also means that when you acquire that sample, you're going to do the same thing in the same way that the producer who you asked about the sample did. Which is a long way of saying you're going to bite, you're going to copy, you're not going to do anything of your own. That's the mindset, okay? So now the question might be, well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with learning about a sample and trying to emulate what another producer did? And in the large scheme of things, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, within the culture of hip-hop music, taking offense to someone who bites music wasn't done to keep somebody down and keep them in the dark about what samples are being used. It was done to keep the music fresh. It forced everybody to fend for themselves, to find their samples and create music on their own merit. And if we listen to old school hip hop, there are a whole bunch of songs about people who bite and the lack of respect that the entire community had for biters in general. It was like a public shaming thing. If you were caught biting, especially if you're biting and passing something off as your own, that was the worst offense. Completely ingrained in hip-hop culture. So when speaking to older heads, they really find it offensive because that is the mindset they're going into it with. Because now we have an era where a lot of music sounds the same because we're recycling the things we like about the past, which means that we now have a system where people will copy other artists in appreciation, but we get no further in the music. Because in general, we don't uphold the rule of biting anymore. So we're at a situation where we've kind of took what we want from hip-hop music and discarded the things that solidify what hip-hop music is. One of the cornerstones of hip-hop arts in general is originality. So it's completely okay to study an artist. And in addition, we have to be original. And in being original, we complete the cycle because our original works now get put out there for someone else to study. And then they can become original and put something else for someone else. And that's how the cycle of hip hop stays fresh. That is why the golden era of hip hop was so exciting because everyone was, for the most part, on the same page and trying to be different, trying to bring out new things. It was a perfect storm because hip hop got to a point where it was actually on the radio. So it was really difficult to bite and remain anonymous. So everyone was on their P's and Q's, and as a result, we got some of the best albums in hip-hop history, period. So for the older heads out there, it's best to explain this to younger artists coming up in the game that maybe not are aware of why it's offensive to ask for a sample. And truth be told, if two producers know each other, samples will be shared all the time. Because at the end of the day, both artists probably know each other very well and respect each other, so there'll really be no biting. Not in a blatant sense. They'll probably share ideas and get inspiration from each other, but there will be originality on both ends that manifests itself as friendly competition. If we're going to maintain hip-hop music and push it into a renaissance in the future, we have to remember what made it great in the first place. and extreme criticism against biting was as natural to hip hop as two turntables and a microphone. And since there's a huge generation gap between young and old, I personally think our time is better spent educating both sides, young and old, on how to push the music forward, because we're in a completely different space right now. Those are my thoughts on hip hop etiquette, biting, and how to actually move forward from where we are right now. Let me know what you think about the whole concept of biting and how it applies to hip hop in today's times and in the past. I'm quite interested to hear your thoughts. Anyway, thank you for listening. If you liked and learned something today, subscribe to us here on YouTube. I will catch you on the next one. In the meantime, take care of yourself. Peace.